Okay, so you can see we have some vocabulary up on the board. While you copy down the vocabulary, I'm going to deal with it. Alright, so a series in general is just the sum of the terms of a sequence. So you have some sequence, add up the values, that's a series. A finite series, obviously finite, has a beginning and an end. Infinite series has no end. And an arithmetic series is a series whose terms form a sequence. Okay? Here I have examples of each type. A finite sequence, you can see it has 5 terms. A finite series, as I said, is you add up the terms in the sequence. And then infinite sequence and series, it's the same thing except they don't end. Okay. Alright, so first thing we want to talk about, or actually this is the only thing we're going to talk about today, is how to find the sum of a finite series. So you can see we have a special sum of a finite series formula. And you can see I labeled what each of the letters in the formula refer to. Please note that n is now not what the last term is. Now n stands for the number of terms in the series. But otherwise a sub 1 is still our first term. N is the number of terms. And then down here, a sub n is the value of that last term. So basically, first term plus last term multiplied by the number of terms divided by 2. And we have 2 possibilities. Possibility number 1 is where we know or can easily figure out the number of terms, and that's what we're going to do over there on the right. And then secondly, we're going to do one where we don't know the number of terms, but of course we have a way to figure it out. Somebody calling their dog. Okay, so here we have a series. Two, 4, 6, ... all the way up to 100. So I write down the formula. That is a good idea for you to do on tests and quizzes. When you get your quiz back on the quiz that you took last Tuesday, you will see that if you put down the correct formula, I gave you a point, even if you did nothing else correct in the problem. And that's what I mean by writing stuff down. The more you write down, the more I can find. If you write nothing down, well, I can't find anything. And if you write nothing down and get the question wrong, you get no credit whatsoever. So now we're just going to fill in the blanks. So we want to know, first thing is how many terms in this series?
An infinite amount.
Okay.
No, just kidding. About 4. It's
How how many terms in this series? See the dot, dot, dot? What?
Unknown.
50.
50. How do you know it's 50, Nikki?
You're adding by 2, and 100 divided by 2.
These are what? These are all what kind of numbers? Even. How many even numbers are there from 1 to 100? 50. So we want the sum of the first of the 50 terms. Our n is 50 divided by 2. Our first term is 2. Our last term is 100. By having the formula written down, it's just a question of plugging numbers in. So now 50 divided by 2 is 25. 2 plus 100 is 102. Multiply 25 by 102. Your answer is 2550. This is S. S for sum. Not like sum or sum isn't total. Okay, are there any questions? Simple enough, right? Okay, now look at the second example. What's the problem here? We don't know how many terms there are. So when we don't know or can't figure out easily, because we didn't really know how many terms there are in the first example, but it was easy enough to figure it out. Here we're going to have to use, folks in the back, please. We're going to have to use our explicit formula, but this time we're not solving for A or we're not solving for D, we're solving for N. N is going to tell us, N stands for the number of terms. So we do know what the value of our last term is. The value of our last term is 223. My first term is 7. Here we're solving for N. And then our common difference is what? How do I go from one term to the next? I add 4. Okay, so now what's the next step in solving this equation? What do I need to do? The common difference. Subtract the second term from the first term from the second term. What's the first thing I need to do here to solve this equation for N? I need to distribute. I distribute the 4, and my next step, I don't want to give it. Let me give it to somebody else. Say that like there's something wrong with it. Yeah. There's no such thing as being too smart. Okay, yes there is. What's wrong with being too smart?
Sometimes you're so smart that, like...
You let me know when you guys reach that point.
I've been.
Okay, you've been that smart.
Yes.
Okay. What's the next step? Okay, Simone. Since you're so smart, what's the next step in this solving this equation? Help me out here. What? No. Combine like terms. 7 and negative 4. You could subtract 7, but then you have to do that operation twice. 4 steps, more opportunities to make a mistake.
Well, technically it wouldn't be another step if you add 4 and 7. Then that's just another step.
I agree. But you're more likely to make a mistake subtracting than you are adding. Even though you're adding 7 and negative 4.
In elementary school.
So now we're going to subtract 3. To get that 220 is equal to 4n. Solve for get that n is equal to 55. So now we know there are 55 terms in this series. Now we can come over to our series formula, and we want to know what is S of 55. What is the sum of all 55 terms? My n is 55 divided by 2. 7 plus first term plus last term. 7 plus 223 gives me 55 divided by 2 times 230. At this point, if you want to just put that into your calculator directly, you can. If you want, you can simplify 55 divided by 2. It doesn't really matter at this point. We multiply together,